The chop is no more. Christopher Columbus and Mount Rushmore have targets painted on them once again. Trump changes his tune on masks, apparently, and Beavis and Butthead might be back. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning and welcome to Contemporary. We've got a ton to get to today, but it's an election year, so when don't we have a ton to get to? But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We've got Contemporary and the news show coming up from my channel over here. We've got Stephen Ignoramus, The Generational Gap. We've got Wyatt Birkenhoff, the R-rated conservative, and we've got the Freckles and Brit show. So come on over, check us out. We've got all kinds of swag over here. You can come and check us out over there, support our content creators, and go take some time and explore some new ones. It's going to be a great time, and make sure you don't miss out on that. All right, let's get started right away into stocks. And I do apologize for being tardy this morning, but I completely overslept and slept right through my 6 o'clock alarm and all three of its reiterations afterward. I was almost 7 before I got up this morning, so that is on me. I apologize for that, but we got to keep going, and the news is going to keep going, and there was way too much to miss a day on this already. I've got to say onto this. So we're looking at the stocks here first. Looks like we had a little bit of a tumble yesterday. Unfortunately, I got up too late to see where it had closed the day before, but I mean, we had just a little bit of a tumble going on here. It's sad to see, but you know, we've got so many other things going on right now, and the holiday weekend is coming up, though, so that's going to start driving it up. And remember, there's no stocks tomorrow. All the markets are going to be closed in observance of Independence Day because at least some of us still want to observe it. It appears not everybody in the United States does, but at least some of us do. So let's go over and see what the investors have to say here from Investors Business Daily. Dow Jones futures signal more gains for coronavirus stock market rally. Tesla surges again on strong deliveries from Ed Carson. Dow Jones futures rose versus fair value early Thursday along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures ahead of the June jobs report. The coronavirus stock market rally had a solid session Wednesday for for growth names rather. Wow. With an upbeat economic data and vaccine news. That's despite record new U.S. coronavirus cases as well as fresh COVID-19 restrictions and corporate actions. All eyes are on Tesla, with Tesla stock continuing to soar early Thursday on second quarter deliveries data. FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google parent Alphabet showed bullish accent Wednesday, while Teladoc Health and Okta cleared buy points. Among the FANG internet giants, Amazon stock and Netflix stock hit record highs, with Netflix stock moving back into a buy zone. Facebook stock and Google stock continue to rebound from last Friday's sell-offs, but those are a little murkier. Teladoc stock and Okta stock offered entries for aggressive investors. Tesla stock is extended. Amazon stock, Tesla stock, and Teladoc stock are on IBD leaderboard, along with Apple stock. Okta stock is on Swing Trader. Facebook stock and Netflix stock are on the IBD 50 list. Google stock is on the IBD long-term leaders watch list. While growth stocks fared well, many real economy names continue to lag. It's a stock picker's market. Diversify among leaders, but not across the stock market. Dow Jones futures rose 0.85% versus fair value, while S&P 500 futures were up 0.7%. NASDAQ 100 futures climbed 0.7%. Late Wednesday close, news broke that the CEOs of Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Google will appear before a House antitrust panel. Well, that's not going to be any good. That hearing will be the end of the panel's probe, which may result in new legislative proposals to rein in big tech, but shares of all four tech giants rose slightly before Thursday's open. The June jobs report will likely swing Dow Jones futures at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Economists expect the mid-month jobs report to show payrolls gain of 3 million after May's surprising increase of 2.5 million. The unemployment rate should fall to 12.4% from May's 13.3%. Remember, overnight action in Dow Jones futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures were negative early Tuesday until an upbeat ADP employment report and positive coronavirus vaccine trial data shortly before the open. So, looks like people are going to get more confident as they see more people going back to work because it's going to be more people to buy their stuff, which is always going to be a good thing. So, a couple things going on there, a couple things moving, and I'm kind of excited to see what the jobs report says. So, let's keep going here. From CNBC, Dow futures jumped more than 200 points ahead of the U.S. jobs report from Fred Imbert and Thomas Frank. It appears that my browser is frozen. Or the webpage has, one of the two. On-air production is the best thing in the world. There we go. Futures contracts tied to the major U.S. stock indices rose early Thursday as investors cheered a bigger than expected increase in jobs as the economy tries to claw back from the coronavirus shutdown. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures were up 419 points or 1.6%. S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ 100 futures gained 1.24 and 0.9% respectively. Boeing shares contributed to the gains before the bell, rising 2.2% after the company completed a series of recertification test flights for the 737 MAX. The government's all-important June's jobs report showed 4.8 million jobs were created in June. The Labor Department said Thursday economists were expecting 2.9 million jobs were created. The unemployment rate fell to 11.1% from 13.3% in May. Economists were expecting a rate of 12.4% according to the Dow Jones. Last month, economists forecast a loss of 8 million jobs in May, and the economy gained 2.5 million payrolls instead. Meanwhile, the weekly jobless claims were also being released Thursday morning. The Labor Department said Thursday that initial jobless claims rose by 1.427 million in the week ending June 27th. Economists polled by Dow Jones expected initial U.S. jobless claims to rise by another 1.38 million, down from 1.48 million the week earlier. The data showed that the number of continuing claims, the number of people receiving unemployment benefits for continuing weeks, rose to 19.29 million, an increase of about 59,000. The data showed the number of continuing claims. Oh, I read that one already. The pre-market, moves Thursday followed the market's first trading day in the third quarter. Both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ Composite gained during the regular session on Wednesday, with the latter jumping more than 1% to an all-time high. Though the Dow Jones Industrial Average lagged on Wednesday with a modest loss, all three major indices are on track for a sizable weekly gains. The S&P 500, Dow, and NASDAQ Composite are up 3.5%, 2.5%, or 2.8% and 4% respectively since Friday's close. U.S. markets will be closed on Friday for the 4th of July holiday. Though traders accredited Wednesday's gains to optimism over a COVID-19 vaccine being developed by Pfizer and BioNTech, Thursday's multiple jobs report loom large in the holiday weekend. So people are going to be more confident to hire new people, and that's going to get more people out and working because there's going to be more people to buy their stuff. And there's that vaccine that I know that Ron over there in the chat that hangs out all the time. I'm sure he's waiting for that vaccine. He's going to be the first one in line to get it. He's waiting for that vaccine. But there do appear to be a few things here that are going to go ahead and make this all work well. And the rise is always going to be slow. That's going to be, you're not going to see this kind of an angle on a rise. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. But we are seeing a rise, and if you look at where we were versus where we are now, it does seem to be that we're almost there. So let's keep going here. I got 3 stories about the CHOP. They all seem to be fairly similar. I was actually debating cutting it down to one of these stories, but they all show things from a different angle, and I kind of wanted to touch on what all 3 said. So first off, we're going to go from K5 out of Seattle. Protests continue after Seattle police dismantled CHOP zone at least 3 dozen arrested. From King 5 staff. Protests continued overnight after police dismantled the Capitol Hill organized protest zone early Wednesday morning. Demonstrators continue to march and protest on Capitol Hill, downtown Seattle, and some marched to Mayor Jenny Durkan's house. Seattle police tweeted around 12:30 a.m. Thursday that some protesters were arrested near Broadway and Pine after bottles were thrown at the police. The Seattle Police Department moved into the CHOP around 5 a.m. Wednesday and returned to the East Precinct after abandoning the building nearly 3 weeks ago. Officers arrested at least 44 people on Wednesday for failure to disperse, obstruction, resisting arrest, and assault. However, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin said she recommended the city not file charges against misdemeanor arrests from Wednesday morning. Durkin issued a 48-hour executive order for protesters to vacate the area due to the ongoing violence and public safety issues in the area of the East Precinct and Cal Anderson Park. Mayor Durkin's order declared the gathering as unlawful assembly that required immediate action. You don't have the authority to declare it an unlawful assembly. That was done for you 140 years ago, or 130 years ago, rather. So no, that's not where you stand in the authority chain, Mrs. Durkin. Think about that for a second. These acts of violence hurt our whole community, and they're also in direct contrast to the message ringing from the streets that Black Lives Matter, Durkin said during a briefing after the operation, which is funny because it does seem that a bunch of black people got shot during this protest. 2 teenagers were killed and 3 other people were injured in shootings in or near the CHOP since the protest began. On June 8th, the precinct was evacuated on June 11th. Police moved into the CHOP just before 5 a.m. and issued a dispersal order to any protesters in the area. Anyone who remains in the area or returns to the area is subject to arrest, SPD tweeted. Officers were seen clearing tents and barriers in the CHOP. King 5 News crews saw officers using pepper spray on demonstrators who weren't leaving the area after dispersal orders were given. So that's from the local area, coming straight from the source here. And yeah, I mean, look at the mess. And I've already seen a lot of that cleared up to an end loader, getting ready to go up into a dumpster. But I mean, just the cleanup that they're going to have to do for this. I don't know where you get misdemeanor from some of this, because I mean, between the cost of the damage that's going to be up to this, the cleanup cost that comes to it, I would start throwing felony vandalism onto some of this, because you're going to be in the millions of dollars. Alright, I want to take a couple different angles here also from CNN and from Fox here. CNN's angle on this says Seattle police dispersed protesters from the occupied CHOP area after emergency order. From Eric Levinson and Hira Humayun. Police dispersed protesters in Seattle's Capitol Hill occupation protest area and arrested at least 31 people on Wednesday after an emergency order by Mayor Durkin. Hundreds of officers worked afterward on cleaning up the area, and the damage there is absolutely devastating, Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best said. The chief was just stunned by the amount of graffiti, garbage, and property destruction, she said at a news conference. Durkin issued an executive order Tuesday in response to reported life, safety, public health, and property issues in and around the East Precinct and Cal Anderson Park area, which protesters have occupied for the past few weeks and which has been marred by a series of shootings. Due to ongoing violence and public safety issues in the East Precinct, Cal Anderson Park area, Mayor Jenny Durkin has issued an executive order to vacate the area. Seattle police will be in the area this morning enforcing the mayor's order, the Seattle Police Department tweeted. Police tweeted, anyone who remains in the area or returns to it will be subject to arrest. The 31 arrests were for failure to disperse, obstruction, assault, and unlawful weapons possession, according to police. Best said in a statement, the move comes after violence in the zone. As I have said, and will say again, I support peaceful demonstrations, Black Lives Matter, and I too want to help propel this movement towards meaningful change in our community. But enough is enough, she said. Thousands of protesters have occupied the 4 to 6 block area known as CHOP, or CHAZ, since early June in an effort to demand police reform following the police killing of George Floyd. But there have been 5 shootings in the area in the past 2 weeks, including 2 fatal ones, undermining its original motivation. So, I mean, it does look like CNN is taking an actual somewhat objective view to this, but it does still seem to be favorable towards the protesters. But let's have a look what Fox has to say here, and we'll compare and contrast. Media narrative, a peaceful Seattle CHOP zone turned upside down as mayor sends in police to stop violence. From Brian Flood. as protesters and armed anarchists seized control last month of a swath of Seattle's downtown that includes a police station, dubbing it the Capitol Hill Organized Protest. The local and mainstream media largely echoed elected leaders by insisting it was a peaceful protest until the people started getting killed. The spin by the Seattle Times and national outlets that covered it belied the violent and dangerous origin of the area that began on June 8th, when Seattle police abandoned their own station and allowed self-described anarchists to create a police-free zone. On Wednesday, police went back and finished clearing out the area after multiple shootings and alleged rape and 2 murders. Yeah, I wonder what Jessica Green has to say about the fact that these people describe themselves anarchists, given the fact that she herself is an anarchist, and also given the fact that this was not an anarchy. They had a clear leader. His name was CHAZ, and he carried a gun. He was the warlord. CHOP violently seized 6 blocks of downtown Seattle, guarded the area they stole with semi-automatic rifles, and appointed a leader who calls himself a warlord, and the media spun it as a fun time with free snacks. The Washington Times columnist Tim Young told Fox News. That's as insane as saying Boko Haram was just trying to start a dating service when they kidnapped nearly 300 women in Nigeria a few years ago. I like that comparison, actually. That's funny. That is funny. I like that. And those liberal outlets probably still can't figure out why people call them fake news. I like that. Since it was established, there have been at least 4 shootings, 2 of which left a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old dead in separate incidents. Seattle police made more than a dozen arrests after Mayor Jenny Durkan declared the gathering an unlawful assembly, a far cry from how it will be originally portrayed by the media and Durkan itself. Yeah, Summer of Love. Summer of Love. They're just out there. They're having a party. We're so used to street festivals, and this is just another street festival. Even though if anybody else had tried to apply for a street festival, we'd shut them down for not having a permit. But oh, no. The mayor responded to criticism of her leadership by President Trump by tweeting that he should not be so afraid of democracy. The CHOP has become lawless and brutal, Police Chief Carmen Best said Wednesday in a written statement. 4 shootings, 2 fatal, robberies, assaults, violence, and countless property crimes have occurred in the several block area. Well, taking the several block area was a property crime in and of itself. But that's why so many people are suing the city of Seattle at this point. The Seattle Times was perhaps the most egregious when it came to celebrating the cop-free area. The paper boasted about free snacks and pleasant smells inside the zone called the CHAZ at a time on June 10th. Pleasant smells. That just means there was a bunch of weed being smoked there. Free snacks at the No Cop Co-op. Free gas masks from some guy's sedan. Yeah, that's always safe. Hey, does this smell like chloroform to you? Free speech at the Speaker Circle, where anyone could say their piece. A free documentary movie, Ava DuVernay's 13th, showing After Dark, Seattle Times reporter Evan Bush wrote. Perhaps the most important to demonstrators, the neighborhood, and the core was free of uniformed police. Bush described the area as Seattle's quirky, lefty Capitol Hill, noting that organizers envisioned education initiatives, programs to address homelessness, and building a community movement where unarmed police are designed to de-escalate. Yeah, and how did that work out for you? Because it seems that now the armed police had to come in and take care of this all. So I don't necessarily agree with having as many police as we do, but I also don't agree with having as many laws that we do. So if we had fewer laws, then we wouldn't necessarily need to have so many police. But when we do need police is at a point where people have literally come out and stolen property, businesses, and occupied them, stolen American land, and called themselves a secession at first, but then decided they needed to change that. But they've stolen either private property or public taxpayer-funded property, and people paid the taxes on that. So if you steal what was stolen from somebody else, that's still theft. So yes, this should have all been shut down long, long ago. As we will see from the father of one of the victims here, I've got one more on this whole thing here from the Daily Wire. Father whose 19-year-old son was killed in Seattle's CHOP gives emotional interview. They should have stopped this a long time ago, from Daily Wire News. Horace Lorenzo Anderson, whose 19-year-old son was killed in Seattle's Capitol Hill organized protest zone, gave an emotional interview to Fox News' Sean Hannity on Wednesday night, where he revealed that he was not allowed to see his son in the hospital, and he has not been contacted by law enforcement about the matter. I'm numb. I'm still numb today, Anderson said. I got to bury my son tomorrow. It's just been a lot going on. My whole thing, my whole life, man, this is incredible. To this day, it's been almost 2 weeks. I haven't heard from nobody. Nobody called me or tried to find me, Anderson continued. His ID is my ID, so his number is my number. So it's easy to come for the detectives to say, excuse me, knock on my door, excuse me, let me tell you what happened about your son. I don't know nothing. I had to find my son. They wouldn't even let me see my son that night. It took me a whole week before I could see my son. I went to the hospital, and they said we couldn't see him. They just said we couldn't see him, Anderson continued. When I go there, I'm going there. I'm looking for a detective. Someone to tell me something. When I get there, there's nobody. The hospital is blank. It's silence. I'm going, what's going on? So I go ask the lady. She tells me to hold on. So I wait. I couldn't go in. I'm waiting for a long time. Then finally she tells me to come to the doctor. And then the doctor tells me, the only thing he tells me is my son is deceased. Anderson said that Seattle's authorities should have stopped this a long time ago. Fact check true. Okay, why am I getting ads? Because I have ad blocker up. Why am I getting ads? But, this is heartrending. And I feel for the father, but on the other side of it too, as far as I know, and this kid can't speak for himself, but he went into the CHAZ willingly, under his own volition. Nobody held a gun to his head and said, you are here and now you're going to stay here forever. Nobody did that, so he went into this willingly, and he took on the risk. He took on the risk of standing up to the government, but it seems that his own government was the one that couldn't protect him, the government of the organized protest zone. So, yeah, I feel for this guy, I really do. But that's all that I have on CHOP right now. So, on to statues. From the New York Post, Christopher Columbus statue removed outside Columbus City Hall from Jackie Salo. A statue of Christopher Columbus was taken down in Columbus, Ohio Wednesday morning amid renewed criticism over the legacy of the explorer. Crews arrived around 3 a.m. with a crane to remove the bronze statue from its perch outside Columbus City Hall, news station WBNS reported. The statue, which will be placed for safekeeping in a city facility, had been a gift from the people of Genoa, Italy in 1955. But Columbus's namesake city has experienced renewed calls to reevaluate symbols associated with him, as critics characterize him as a symbol of white supremacy responsible for the destruction of indigenous cultures. Mayor Andrew Ginther announced last month that the statue would be coming down, saying it doesn't represent the city's values, news station WSYX reported. For many people in our community, the statue represents patriarchy, oppression, and divisiveness, Ginther said. That does not represent our great city, and we will no longer live in the shadow of our ugly past. He asked the Columbus Art Commission to evaluate the diversity and inclusiveness of all public art. Oh, Jesus Christ. Including other monuments, statues, and art installations. Several statues of Columbus across the country have been vandalized or torn down in recent weeks, including one toppled by protesters in Richmond, Virginia, and another that was beheaded in Camden, New Jersey. Yet we are going right down 1984 here, and that was not meant to be an instruction manual, and I can't believe it's actually happening. I really don't. I really can't. But it's happening, and just remember, he who controls the past controls the present, and he who controls the present controls the future. Let's see what they have to say about a bigger statue here. Yeah, it's a sad thing to see. Going away, just like that, on a trailer. You gotta wonder what's gonna happen to it, but this is the product of our education system at this point. Alright, once again from the Daily Wire, New York Times lays out a case against Mount Rushmore. Critics remind paper of its own problematic past. From James Barrett. The New York Times published an article and a promotional tweet on Wednesday laying out the case against one of America's most iconic monuments, Mount Rushmore, a move that came within a couple days of a quickly deleted tweet by the Democratic Party expressing a similar sentiment. In a since-deleted tweet Monday night, the Democratic Party described President Trump's upcoming Independence Day celebrations at the famous monument as glorifying white supremacy at Mount Rushmore, a region once sacred to tribal communities. Trump has disrespected Native communities time and time again. The party tweeted, he's attempted to limit their voting rights and blocked critical pandemic relief. Now he's holding a rally glorifying white supremacy at Mount Rushmore, a region once sacred to tribal communities. Didn't like the Lakota take that over from the Cheyenne or something? I was reading a little bit about that earlier on. So I mean, this has been conquered numerous times, but once it's white people, then it's horribly evil. And I need to have this clarified, so I need to actually ask somebody who's a law professor or something, a lawyer, something or other, but I'm to the understanding that Native American reservations are sovereign soil, which means they're a different country. Which means I don't know why they would be seeking voting rights because they live in a different country, legally speaking. So I need to have that clarified for me. I need to understand what that means and how that means, because I know that, like when I go to Potawatomi in Milwaukee, I can smoke a cigar indoors there, even though I can't do it anywhere else in Wisconsin. I think they actually might have just changed that. I know the Madison Ho-Chunk Casino, they changed that recently where you couldn't smoke indoors anymore. But at any other casino that I've ever been to, you can have a cigar going the whole time that you're sitting in there. I mean, you can drink while you're in there too, but I mean, that's to be par for the course, and they want you to be drunk because they want you to spend more money. But I was to the understanding that this was all a sovereign nation, so they had differences in taxation, and yeah, they didn't have to follow U.S. rules. So I don't know what's going on with that or how that goes, but if they're on a sovereign nation, they shouldn't have a vote. They're in their own country. But we'll figure that out. I'll bet you when I read chat after the show that somebody will have it. On Wednesday, the New York Times published a piece effectively expanding on the Democrats' swipe at Mount Rushmore. In a tweet summarizing one of the article's key points, the Times wrote, Mount Rushmore was built on land that belonged to the Lakota tribe and sculpted by a man who had strong bonds with the Ku Klux Klan. It features the faces of 2 U.S. presidents who were slaveholders. The article, titled, What the French Toast? Did they figure out how to get around my ad blocker? The article, titled How Mount Rushmore Became Mount Rushmore, details how the South Dakota landmark has drawn criticism over the land it occupies, the main sculptor behind it, and the legacies of the men it memorializes. A few excerpts on the Times report of the Big Big Piece of Americana. And there's a big excerpt there. Like the Democratic Party's rapidly pulled tweet, the Times post promoting its Mount Rushmore piece was met with intense criticism online. Below are just a few examples of the flood of overwhelmingly negative responses to the Times' apparent push to cancel the beloved monument, including many pointing out that the Times had its own problematic past. So, from PragerU, in 1851, New York Times founding editor Henry Jarvis Raymond published an editorial in which he supported a slave owner's legal right to recover his escaped slaves. Clavin from the Daily Wire says a former newspaper was built on land that belonged to Canarsie tribe and covered up both the Holocaust and the communist starvation of millions. Philip Shanker tweets, the New York Times headquarters is built on Lenape land, which was stolen until the New York Times gives up their building to their descendants. Anyone working for them is clearly involved in white supremacy. I like that. And John Nicosia, that'll be the last one I read here, replies to the New York Times tweet as, this building is built on land basically stolen for $24 from the Delaware Indians. You implode this temple of America hating assholes and I'll give you the mountain. Man, you almost don't want to see it too. But I disavow any violence against the New York Times, obviously. All right, let's keep going here. From ABC News, America's national parks face existential crisis over race. A mostly white workforce visitation threatens park survival and public health. From Stephanie Ebbs and Devin Dwyer. Public health, you say? Let's see what ABC has to say. As millions of Americans escape home quarantine to the great outdoors this summer, they'll venture into parks, campgrounds, and forest lands that remain stubborn bastions of self-segregation. The outdoors and public lands suffer from the same systemic racism that the rest of our society does, says Joel Pannell, Associate Director of the Sierra Club, which is leading an effort to boost diversity in the wilderness and access to natural spaces. New government data, shared first with ABC News, shows the country's premier outdoor spaces, the 419 national parks, remain overwhelmingly white. Just 23% of the visitors, Of the parks were people of color. The National Park Service found its most recent 10-year survey 77% were white. Minorities make up 42% of the U.S. population. That tells me we've got a lot of work to do, said David Vela, acting director of the National Park Services. The career park administrator, appointed by President Trump to the post in 2017, is the first Latino to lead the agency. Government officials and environmental advocates agree that the racial disparity of the outdoors is an existential crisis. If we don't address this, and we don't see how all these things are interrelated, then we're going to risk losing everything, said Pennell. You're not going to have public lands to enjoy. The U.S. Census Bureau projects people of color will be a majority of America by 2044, a demographic shift that will impact park attendance and finances. Community advocates say physical and mental health for minority communities is also at risk. Oh my God. Is this bigotry of low expectations I keep hearing about? Because that's definitely what it sounds like. I feel like nature is a right to everyone, and we should all feel safe enough to experience it, said Lauren Gay, a Tampa, Florida mother, who chronicles her experiences as a woman of color in the wilderness on her blog and podcast, Outdoorsy Diva. We need better ways to cope with stress, cope with some level of trauma. We all have some level, honestly, of PTSD from a lot of things that we've lived through as people of color, and nature is a way to do that, Gay said. Ambreen Tariq, creator of Brown People Camping social media campaign, learned to camp with her family in Minnesota after they emigrated to the U.S. from India. She now advocates for representation of families like hers and people of color to enjoy the outdoors. The future of our country is more and more diverse. We're going to have more people of color in this country than white people, but our parks, our green spaces, our conservation spaces, those demographics are remaining white. What does that mean for the future of our land, for environmentalism? We need everyone to experience and then love the land so that they will stay and fight, Tariq said. So here's what I have to say to this. Now, of course, I don't know how national parks go. I don't know if there's a fee. I've been in Grand Canyon National Park once, and that was just a few years ago. I don't remember if there was a fee to come to it or not. But other than the entrance fee, there is nothing barring you from getting into these. I know the state parks you have to buy a license to go in and camp and go in and explore, but there is nothing that is barring you at this point from going and visiting these parks. So go visit them if you want to change the demographic. Just go visit them and convince your friends to go visit them. It's simple. It's easy. Go over and do it. So that's what I have to say on that. This is not a hard problem to correct if you really want to correct it that hard. Just go visit the park. There's not a guy in a Klan hood standing outside the park saying, you may not enter, you shall not pass. So go visit it. Easy peasy. I do think that there is a level of, with the urban sprawl too, and I don't really want to opine too much on this because I can't say as a confirmed fact, but one of the things that I've noticed is that it does seem that especially inner city natives don't like to leave the inner city, and that goes for all races, by the way. Once they're in the inner city, they get uncomfortable being out in nature, out away from everything. So there are other sides to it. But the biggest thing is, once again, if you want the national park demographic to change, then go visit the park. Easy as that. All right. Let's keep going down the list here. I got another one from New York Post. Kayleigh McEnany says AOC wants to get rid of NYPD entirely, from Ebony Bowden. To Washington, the White House press secretary Kayleigh McEnany ripped AOC on Wednesday after the firebrand leftist congresswoman said a drastic billion-dollar cut to the New York City, Police Department budget was not enough. McEnany suggested she wanted to get rid of cops altogether. It's unacceptable when you have people like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez really suggesting where the Democratic Party stands today, because taking $1 billion away from the NYPD officers wasn't enough for her, McEnany told reporters at Wednesday's White House briefing. She wants to take it all away. She doesn't want police officers, and that's really unacceptable proposition, she continued. The Bronx Democratic Socialists this week criticized a sweeping reduction to the New York Police Department budget after Bill de Blasio and the City Council on Tuesday slashed $1 billion from the force's $6 billion operating budget. "This is not a victory. The fight to defund policing continues," she said, referring to the movement to reduce public spending on police and allocating it to initiatives for marginalized communities. Defunding police means defunding police. It does not mean budget tricks or funny math. It does not mean moving school police officers from the NYPD budget to the Department of Education's budget so that the exact same police remains in schools, she continued. The squad member also engaged in a public spat with his owner over the cuts. McEnany told reporters that Trump stood firmly behind the city's finest and noted a recent HuffPo YouGov survey which found that most Americans did not support the movement to defund the police departments. Funny, the mainstream media doesn't tell us about that survey. We're at a place where 64% of the nation are concerned that the growing criticism of Americans' police will lead to a shortage of police officers that will harm all Americans. It's an untenable principle that appears to be the point that they're trying to get to, is a reduction in police and more danger to people that, well, they probably want to get rid of. So, I mean, good on McEnany, and I mean, that's absolutely right. And once again, I've heard the idea floated of private police, and that's what we're going to see if we get rid of all the police, is that all the rich people are going to go out and buy up the former police officers and have their own private security. That'll be the private police. But the one thing, and I'm very libertarian and small government on a lot of things. First off, we need to get the federal government out of policing entirely, but the other thing with it is the society that makes the laws, the governing body that makes the laws should be responsible for enforcing them. Private fire, I'm okay with. Private hospital, private ambulance, private EMT, I'm okay with. Private just about anything else, I'm okay with. Private roads. But if the government is designing the laws, it's on them. They have to bear the cost and the responsibility of enforcing them. And hopefully bearing the cost means that they won't make too many laws, but we've seen how that goes along in the world. All right, let's keep going down here. Oops, hit the wrong button. Almost shut the stream down. All right, from MarketWatch. Zuckerberg said to say all of Facebook... Wow, I can read. Zuckerberg said to say a Facebook ad boycott. All of these advertisers will be back soon enough. From Mike Murphy over at MarketWatch. Hundreds of companies around the world have joined a temporary ad boycott against Facebook Incorporated, but Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg says he's not worried and has no intentions of changing his policies, according to a new report. Zuckerberg said the boycott is more of a PR issue than one that will hurt the social media giant's bottom line, according to a report Wednesday by The Information, which is a cited transcript of remarks Zuckerberg gave at an employees-only virtual town hall on Friday. We're not going to change our policies or approach anything because of a threat to a small percent of our revenue, or to any percent of our revenue, he said, according to The Information. While generating headlines, the boycott involves only a tiny fraction of Facebook's roughly 8 million advertisers. The company generates almost all of its revenue from ads. Really? Because I'm pretty sure that the company generates almost all of its revenue from China and selling your data to them. The hashtag Stop Hate for Profit campaign was started by a civil rights group last month, calling for major companies to stop their Facebook ad spending for July to protest the company's inability to rein in hate speech, threats of violence, and misinformation on its platform, otherwise known to this political action committee as Anything the President Says. A portion of Friday's virtual town hall was streamed to the public from Zuckerberg's Facebook page, where he announced some policy changes to crack down on hateful content and voting misinformation, but he was reportedly more blunt in private remarks to employees, saying Facebook would not cave to the pressure. Zuckerberg has a Facebook page? Wow. If I owned that company, I wouldn't go any fucking where near it. You know, we don't technically set our policies because of any pressure that the people apply to us, he said, according to The Information. And in fact, I usually tend to think that if someone goes out there and threatens you to do something, that actually kind of puts you in a box where in some ways it's even harder to do what they want, because now it looks like you're capitulating, and that sets up a bad long-term incentives for others to do that to you as well. Experts told MarketWatch on Wednesday that companies are joining the boycott and may see a bigger boost to their brands than Facebook ads would have generated in the first place. By pulling ads, they save money, makes a low-risk statement that results in positive publicity and marketing for their brands among constituents, Gerard Francis Corbett, a communication strategy consultant based in Silicon Valley, told MarketWatch. The Facebook boycott, is a lower-risk way for CEOs to make a political statement. Yeah, there is the fact that all press is good press, but I mean, you are alienating half your base as well. I mean, this Michael Jordan said it best, and I'm going to quote this again. I've quoted this numerous times on this show and my other show, but Republicans buy sneakers too. So if you alienate one, and we're coming to a point of divisiveness in this country where you can't alienate one while capitulating to the other, and you can't capitulate to one without alienating the other. So we're getting more polarized and more divisive at this point, and I'm getting afraid that balkanization is going to be the only way. I mean, I look at Parler right now, and like I've said before, one of the reasons I don't go to Parler is because it is an echo chamber, and all I'm going to do is interact with more right-wing people. Yes, it'll probably bring my viewership up, but I'll never have the chance to have the debates, discuss the ideas, and see whose idea sinks to the bottom and whose floats to the top, like I will if I go into a platform like Twitter, where it's mixed still for the most part. So, yeah, there's a couple things going on there. I'm still not going to use Facebook regularly. Once in a while, I'll go on there and see if somebody's doing something or send a message through Messenger or something. But for the most part, the platform is dead to me. I stream to it every day, and then I don't go back and check it. And every once in a while, I go back onto the videos and check for comments. But for the most part, it's dead to me. Let's keep going here. Democratic rep accuses Trump of treason over Russia bounty report. This is a story that I've not touched really well because I'm pretty sure it's bullshit. In fact, I'm almost positive it's bullshit. But they're going to keep trying to use this as an election issue, and I'm going to be forced to pay attention to it. Representative Seth Moulton tore into Trump on a caucus call from Marissa Schultz. Representative Seth Moulton, a former Marine Corps officer, accused President Trump of treason on Wednesday over reports that Russia paid bounties to Afghan fighters to kill American soldiers, and the White House took no action in response. Moulton, a former platoon commander in Iraq, said that if he led his Marines into an ambush because he failed to read intelligence reports, he would be in prison. The Massachusetts Democrat questioned why the commander-in-chief is not held to the same standard. If this is not treason, then I don't know what is, Moulton said Wednesday on a House Democratic caucus call with callers. If I led my Marines into an ambush because I didn't we just read this, like, up here? Yeah. The comments from Moulton, who had a short-lived 2020 presidential run, come as Democrats have ramped up the rhetoric against Trump over the Russian bounty reports, and have demanded more answers from the White House about the intelligence assessment, first reported by New York Times, that the New York Times, you say? Wow. So that's going to be objective, that a Russia military unit paid bounties to Taliban-linked fighters to kill coalition troops in Afghanistan. The White House has pushed back hard on the reporting, saying Trump was not aware of the bounty program, and intelligence officials didn't tell him because there was no consensus with the intel community on the alleged plot. Trump dismissed the reporting as a hoax. The Russian bounty story is just another made up by fake news tale that is told only to damage me and the Republican Party, Trump tweeted. The New York Times reported that the information about the bounty program was provided to Trump in his daily written brief in late February. The intelligence was taken seriously enough that it prompted an interagency meeting of the National Security Council in late March, and U.S. officials shared information with the British government, whose forces were also believed to have been targeted by the Russian bounties, the Times reported. It has been reported, however, that Trump does not read the detailed presidential brief regularly, and is more often briefed on intelligence issues verbally. Trump's national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, told Fox and Friends Wednesday that the CIA officer who briefs the president decided not to tell the commander-in-chief that Russia was allegedly paying bounties to kill U.S. troops. Really? So this might not be the Donald's fault? I mean, yes, okay, he should be reading his intelligence briefings, don't get me wrong, but there was another link in the chain, you say? Another reason that this didn't get there, you say? The intelligence community does not have a consensus, and as a result, the president's career? CIA briefer decided not to brief him because it was unverified intelligence, O'Brien said. And by the way, she is an outstanding officer, and knowing all of the facts I know, I certainly support her decision. So did this happen or not? Because I'm hearing equal sides on this story that say that this is all bullshit and that this is absolutely 100% real and Trump needs to go to prison for treason and murder. I'm hearing equal sides of this. From the sounds of it, there was something that was made up, and that's just me, first off, knowing the relationship between the Kremlin and the Taliban is rocky at best. And two, if this had been confirmed, I'm pretty sure we would have done something about it. I mean, we drone strike Soleimani over the fact that he was actually out in the open and could be drone strike. So there are a couple things at play here, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure the story is bullshit. But Biden had to weigh in on it, of course. Biden takes a shot at Trump over Russian bounty story. Pompeo fires back during an interview. From the Daily Wire News, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo responded in criticisms from presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden over reports that a Russian military intelligence unit put bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan by pointing to the Trump administration's record on holding Russians accountable and listing the failures of Obama administration to take the stronger action against Russia. He either reads and or gets briefed on important issues, and he forgets it and he doesn't think it's necessary that he need to know it, Biden said at a press conference this week. He should at minimum have picked up the phone and said, Vlad, old buddy, I got hairy legs. If any of this is true and doesn't cease immediately, you got a big problem. I'm going to send Corn Pop after you. Pompeo responded to the comments during an interview on Fox News with anchor Brett Baier on special reporting, saying, There's been no administration to hold the Russians accountable in the way that this one has. I only wish former Vice President Biden had held the Russians accountable, Pompeo said. We'd been cleaning up a lot of a mess. I wish he'd provided arms to Ukrainians. I wish he'd gotten out of the INF treaty. I wish he hadn't allowed and invited the Russians into Syria. I could go on, but you've got a short show. The failures of the previous administration allowed the Russians a lot of space to move, Pompeo continued. We pushed back. We've sanctioned more Russians than any other administration in history. I'll take a back seat to no one with respect to what our administration and President Trump has done to hold Vladimir Putin accountable when he's engaged in malign activity. And there's the video below and another advertisement because fuck you, Daily Wire. And yeah. I mean, wasn't it Barack Obama who sat with the intelligence director of Russia and said, after my re-election, I'll have more freedom to do things. So just wait until after my re-election, and got caught on a hot mic. Does nobody remember that? All right, let's keep going here. We've only got a couple more, and then we'll do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate, and we'll get on out of here. All right. So it seems that Trump has changed his mind on masks here. So let's see what we've got going on here. Trump says he's all for masks, but believes coronavirus will disappear. From Megan Vasquez and Ali Malloy over at CNN. President Trump said Wednesday he would have no problem wearing a face mask in public if certain circumstances, a pivot from his months-long refusal to wear a mask at public events where social distancing was not always observed. When asked whether he would wear a mask, Trump told Fox Business in a White House interview, "Oh, I would. I have. I mean, people have seen me wearing one. If I'm in a group of people where we're not 10 feet away, but usually I'm not in that position and everyone's tested." Trump said that he didn't believe making masks mandatory across the country was necessary, but claimed that he's all for the masks and thinks that masks are good. Trump added he would have no problem with being seen with a mask on. "Actually, I had a mask on. I sort of liked the way it looked. I was like, okay, it was a dark black mask. And I thought, and if people feel good about it, then they should do it." Trump hasn't worn a face mask in front of cameras since the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention provided new guidelines in April, encouraging Americans to wear facial coverings when social distancing was not an option. When the CDC guidelines went into effect, Trump told reporters he probably won't adopt the practice. "I don't think I'm going to be doing it," Trump said at the time. Wearing a mask as I greet presidents, prime ministers, dictators, kings, queens. I just don't see it. And on a trip to a Ford plant in May, Trump said he wore a mask on parts of the plant where reporters were not allowed, saying he didn't want to give the press the pleasure of seeing it. The president is still scheduled to participate in a 4th of July celebration at Mount Rushmore in South Dakota. The governor has told expected spectators they are not expected to social distance, nor will they be required to wear a mask. Trump also said on his Fox Business interview Wednesday that he thinks the coronavirus will disappear someday. When asked if he actually believes the virus will still disappear, Trump said, I do, yeah, sure, at some point. I think we're going to have a vaccine very soon, too. We're headed back to a very strong fashion, and I think we're going to be good with the coronavirus. I think at some point it's just going to sort of disappear, I hope, Trump said in the interview while talking about the economy. So Trump has essentially taken the same position that I've taken on the mask from the beginning of it. I choose not to wear one unless I go to a business that requires it. And just like Trump, I don't believe the federal government or even the state government has a place in mandating that you wear one. Businesses can decide whether they want to do business with people who wear one or whether they don't, and that's their prerogative. And if you want to wear a mask, have at it. Wear the fanciest fucking mask that you can find. Absolutely have at it. But if you don't want to wear the mask, that's on you. And that's just it. It's on you. And those of you who don't want to get sick or are that frightened and afraid, stay home. End of story. It's really easy to get along with people. So that's what I have with that. I got another one here from the New York Post. I got a lot of stuff from the New York Post today. So I found out about this because I needed to do laundry yesterday, and the washing machine here is coin op. But national coin shortage has retailers pleading for exact change from Noah Manskar. The coronavirus crisis has sparked a nationwide coin shortage that reportedly has retailers pleading with customers for exact change. The Federal Reserve revealed last month that the pandemic had slightly disrupted the supply chain and circulation patterns for America's metal money. The U.S. Mint has slowed production of coins because of measures meant to protect workers amid the crisis, while coin deposits from banks have also fallen in the past few months, the central bank said. With demand for coins rising as states begin to reopen, the Fed on June 15th starting limiting how many pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters it distributed to banks as part of its effort to mitigate the effects of low coin inventories. Retailers have since started advising customers that coins are in short supply. Some Lowe's hardware stores have posted signs urging shoppers to pay with exact change or use other forms of payment, as have convenience stores such as 7-Eleven, Pilot, and Circle K, according to news reports and social media posts. At this point, we're having to call daily to get coin, Karen Gordon, a 7-Eleven franchisee in Elmira Heights, New York, told the NBC affiliate WETM. The most we've been able to get is $122. That's not a lot of coin. Supermarket chain Meijer has reportedly taken a different approach by banning cash payments and its self-checkout lanes until the shortage ends. The Michigan-based company is still accepting bills at staffed cash registers, according to MLive.com. While we understand the effort may be frustrating to some customers, it's necessary to manage the impact of the coin shortage to our stores, Meijer spokesman Fred Guglielmi told MLive.com. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell recently told lawmakers that the shortage was likely temporary. Coin circulation was starting to improve as states eased lockdowns meant to control the deadly coronavirus, he said at a hearing last month. Stores have been closed. The whole system of flow had to come to a stop, Powell told the House Financial Services Committee. As the economy reopens, we're seeing coins begin to move around again. Well, I've got a bunch of other coins, just not quarters because I have to use them to do laundry. So maybe I'll take those over to the bank and see if I can inject a little bit of coinage back into the economy here. But that's one thing that you're actually going to see as we move along and do some things like this is, I know first off, a lot of us are trying to move to a cashless society. That's been one of the conspiracies that I actually buy into that's been floating around since the beginning of the coronavirus. That's something that I actually absolutely 100% see happening. But the other thing you've got to keep in mind with everybody locked down, people buying things online, people doing everything else online, the cash that they had in coins when they did use cash went into one of those big water jugs, the ones that they put on that make the bubbles in there when you fill your cup with stuff. That's where all the coins end up, because every one of you knows at least one guy that has one of those. You all know one guy. Just one. Maybe more. I don't have one. I use cheese ball containers for my coins, and I keep them separated by value. But we all know that one guy that has them. So, a couple things going on with this, but it's making it very inconvenient for me to do laundry. Maybe the people that own this building will take all the coins that they've bilked out of us over the years and take them in and get those back into circulation. That'd be nice too. All right. Three more, I'm sorry. And then a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. This was almost the thing that I liked, but I didn't like it that much, to be honest. Corey LaJoie's car to sport Trump 2020 scheme for 9 NASCAR Cup Series races. From ESPN, no author given. The NASCAR's Cup Series car, driven by Corey LaJoie, will have a Trump 2020 paint scheme for 9 races, including Sunday's Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, following a sponsorship by a political action committee. Patriots of America PAC, which is supporting the re-election bid of President Trump, will sponsor the number 32 Ford Mustang, which is owned by GoFaz Racing, and will have a red, white, and blue paint scheme. Oh, that's kind of cool. I actually like that. I'm still not going to capitulate and watch NASCAR, but I'm sure that some of this has to do with trying to pick up lost leadership over the Bubba Wallace thing. With an estimated 75 million NASCAR fans out there, I was surprised that about 15 million of those fans are not registered voters, LaJoie said in a statement. I will give my best effort to get NASCAR fans registered to vote through our team efforts on and off the track. When they see the car, hopefully it makes them race to the polls in November. Oh my God. That was almost as cringy as Pokemon Go to the polls from 2016. Oh God. Wow, I can't believe I read that. In 2016, a Cup Series car driven by Reed Sorensen had a Trump-Mike Pence paint scheme for a race in Texas that was just days before the presidential election. And that's all that they have for that. So, yeah, I think this is just a pandering move at this point to try and win back some of the deep South and deep red state Republicans that said that they weren't going to watch NASCAR anymore over the Bubba Wallace thing. Now, I gave up on NASCAR quite a while ago. I started getting sour to it when Toyota came in, but it's a long race. I've got other things to do on a Sunday. It's kind of the same thing with football. Football fucking up happened at the same time that I was starting to get really busy on Sundays. So it was a blessing in disguise to watch one game instead of watching all the games. I actually have more time to get a bunch more stuff done. And I mean, NASCAR is the same thing, especially in nice weather. I don't have time to sit down and watch a 4-hour race. But even if I did at this point, I wouldn't watch, just because of the Bubba Wallace thing and the fact that they all got out and pushed his car around after what turned out to be, I'm still 100% positive, was a hoax. So, good try on that. We'll see if that does change anything going forward for ESPN and see what we have here. Now, we talked about Kamala Harris being the vice presidential pick, and I'm actually going to go in and retweet my poll from yesterday as well, but Biden is also going up on the other side of the government here. Biden compiling a list of potential black women nominees for the Supreme Court. Does anybody remember the quote, "binders full of women"? Because that's all I think about here. People that Biden wants to go and sniff. Presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden said Tuesday he's compiling a list of black women who could be nominees of the Supreme Court. We're putting together a list of a group of African American women who are qualified and have the experience to be on the court, Biden said during a press conference in Delaware. I'm going to release that until we go further down the line of vetting them. President Trump and Republicans have been pressuring Biden to release a list of judges he's considering as Supreme Court nominees. Trump released his list of potential names in the run-up to the 2016 election. The president's judicial nominations have been one of his greatest achievements in the eyes of his conservative supporters. But Biden says he will keep his potential nominees under wraps for now. The former vice president also committed to nominating a woman to be his running mate. The campaign originally said it expected to announce the vice presidential pick by August 1st, but Biden said Tuesday he couldn't guarantee meeting that deadline. He committed to releasing his pick before the convention begins in Milwaukee on August 17th. I'm not releasing the names of all the vice presidential nominees, Biden said. There are a number of women of color. There are Latino women, Asian, across the board. Sniff, 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 sniff. And we're just underway now in the hard vet of going into the deep background checks. Deep. We're going deep. That could take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to be done. The committees have been formed and that's underway. So I have a poll out on Twitter. And I should check on that at this point, but I don't want to jump over into Twitter right away. But I want to see what people think is more dangerous for your individual liberties, for Kamala Harris to be the vice president or on the Supreme Court. And people who have commented have been overwhelmingly in support of the vice president because that means that she'll become the president because this doddering old fool can't make it through a term. But the vote, on the other hand, the last time I looked, was actually heavily in favor of the Supreme Court because, and as one other commenter pointed out, that means that she's going to be one of 9 unelected dictators to run our lives and legislate from the bench. And it's probably going to be more than that because I guarantee they're going to pack the court. So, that's an interesting thing to see, but I mean, yes, he's just pandering to demographics. Is it not unequal opportunity if you don't pick people by their qualifications rather than the color of their skin? I mean, does equal opportunity go out the window? Or is the federal government not an equal opportunity employer? What's going on here? All right, the last one I have here for news, before we go into a thing I like and a thing I hate, came from over on the Discord. The Chill Anarchist. Go over and check out his Twitch channel. Put this in the Discord here, and I wanted to see what he had to say about it. From Cointelegraph, The Future of Money, a cryptocurrency journal. Russian court, theft of 100 Bitcoin isn't a crime because Bitcoin isn't a property. A Russian court turned down a request from a victim of 100 Bitcoin theft seeking restitution, with the court arguing that cryptocurrencies have no legal status. And this is going to be an argument, actually, that we do need to come out and figure out. Because we will have to see. I mean, Bitcoin is, from what I understand, really hard to hack because it's decentralized. But everything's going to be possible. People are going to figure out a way no matter what. So we are going to have to figure out legal status and whether or not you can recoup losses and restitution from it. But let's read on. On June 30th, the Russian criminal court denied a motion to provide restitution to a victim of what would in many jurisdictions be a felony, arguing that Bitcoin, as a virtual currency, does not enjoy the same property protection as other assets. The case goes back to 2018 when 2 men impersonating federal security agents and their accomplices kidnapped the victim and forced him into giving them 5 million rubles or $90,000 in cash and 99.7 Bitcoin worth about $900,000. Yeah, ooh boy. That's a whole bunch of money. The kidnappers were sentenced to 8 and 10-year prison sentences. A part of the criminal proceedings, the victim requested the court rule to force the thieves to repay the funds they stole from him. The court ruled partially in the victim's favor, asserting the thieves must repay the 5 million rubles. However, when it came to the cryptocurrency, the court declared that it is unable to satisfy the claim since virtual currencies are not recognized by the Russia's law as legal tender or its surrogate. The victim may try his luck in civil court, regardless of any future legal proceedings. This court decision is remarkable. In essence, it declared that Bitcoin theft is not a crime. Yeah, and this is going to come at some point. Whether a hacker goes in there and gets it, or, like I said, somebody uses it to pay a ransom. We're going to have to decide what Bitcoin is and whether it's going to be. And I don't look at Bitcoin as a separate currency. I pretty much look at it as a bank account given into a different currency. Because the Bitcoin, from what I understand, and I've never used it, but from what I understand, it works exactly the same way as a debit card. So you just put your money into a different account and then pay it in a different way. So I'm not sure what the difference is at this point. I'd love to research more and figure out more, but I've got a couple other projects on the line too. So It's been something that's been backburnered for me, but I mean, it's an interesting concept if they actually have created a complete separate currency. But once again, we'll have to rule whether theft is property or not. Alright, now let's do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. And the thing that I like, of course, which could turn into a thing that I hate depending on what Gen Z and Gen Y do to this, but from The Hollywood Reporter, Beavis and Butthead returning with 2 new seasons and spin-offs at Comedy Central. Creator Mike Judge will oversee the updated series with a plan already in place for spin-offs and specials of the former MTV pop culture phenomenon. Comedy Central is summoning the Great Cornholio. The Viacom CBS-owned cable network is reviving Beavis and Butthead, with series creator Mike Judge returning to relaunch and reimagine the franchise as part of a sizable deal that includes a 2-season order and plans for additional spin-offs and specials. Judge will return as the show's central driving force and will write, produce, and provide voiceover for both of the iconic characters who became pop culture sensations in the early 1990s on Comedy Central's corporate sibling MTV. In the new incarnation, Beavis and Butthead will enter a whole new Gen Z world with meta themes that are said to be relatable to both new fans who may be unfamiliar with the original series and old. We are thrilled to be working with Mike Judge and a great team of 3 arts again as we double down on adult animation at Comedy Central, said Chris McCarthy, who oversees Viacom CBS Entertainment and Youth Group as president. Beavis and Butthead were a defining voice of a generation, and we can't wait to watch as they navigate the treacherous waters of a world light years from their own that everybody's offended by everything in. The new take on the Teenage Couch Potatoes comes less than 10 days after Comedy Central began The Home of Jody, an adult animated series that is a spin-off of Daria, which itself was an offshoot of Judge's Beavis and Butthead. Beavis and Butthead, like the Tracy Ellis Ross-led Jody, hails from MTV Studios, the in-house division launched 2 years ago by McCarthy, with a larger goal to monetize the company's vast library and sell to third-party buyers. With McCarthy now overseeing the Comedy Central MTV and a slew of other cable brands at the company, he's now turning to the studio into a content supplier of his own. So, my biggest thing here, first off, my biggest excitement here, because I was not that much of a Beavis and Butthead fan because the local cable provider where I lived didn't have MTV until after I moved out. So for me, it was just either catching a video cassette or catching an episode when I went over to my friend's house because their cable provider had MTV, ours did not. So I was very late to the Beavis and Butthead game. I mean, I saw Do America when it was new, but I'm very excited if Judge is being back out there picking up things that were popular with him to see if we do another King of the Hill, because that's what I'm excited for. A new King of the Hill, Hank Hill trying to navigate today's world, because that would be fucking hilarious. And see how much Alex Jones Dale Gribble listens to, because I'm sure that's going to be in there too. But my biggest fear, because I've seen Do America and I've seen a handful of episodes of Beavis and Butthead, the TV show, is my God, I hope to God they don't ruin this. I hope my generation, the millennial generation, doesn't ruin this. Man, that could go very, very wrong very, very quickly. But I'm excited for the concept, and I'm excited to see what else is going to come up out of this. So I kind of want to see. No, I'm not going to bring back cable into this. We'll wait till it comes out on the streaming services, but I'm still kind of excited to see what's going to happen with this. All right, now we're going to do a thing that I hate. All right. Oh, looks like I got some attention from this. So, Fighting Game Zoomer came out yesterday and wrote a message here, a tweet here. Want to start making your FGC spaces more safe? Start at your public Discord servers. Make your rules robust, make sure they protect members from harassment, and makes people feel safe in your servers. And she goes on a 12-tweet diatribe on how you can make your server safe for other people. Now, this comes in the light of the fact that people are getting purged off of Discord in massive numbers. From what I hear in Matt and Blonde's server over there, I mean, there's a big problem over there. And I think that the company man over on my server and the Generational Gap server, I think he got purged and he made a new account. I think Midget got hit too and made a new account as well. I think they both got hit by all this, but with all this coming in here, I mean, this is the pressure that's going into Discord at this point to try and make them into an SJW safe space. Now, of course, I had to reply onto this and I said, or, hear me out, you can respect free speech and have as few rules as possible like mine. Because, I mean, I have more rules than what's on here, obviously, but not much. For the most part, in my Discord server, if you make spamming, I'm going to time you out. Because that disrupts the flow of conversation. So if you just come in and make stupid spam statements out of that, I'll time you out for a little bit. And if you dox somebody, you are gone instantly, and you don't get an appeal on that one. You don't get to message me after you dox somebody and say, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, please let me back in. Nope. You're gone, no appeals, no nothing else. Because I do want my Discord server to be somewhat of a safe space, but not the way that they want theirs to be. I want people to be able to come into my Discord server, which is linked in the description below, by the way, and discuss spicy ideas and have spicy conversations and topics, and just in general, discuss the ideas openly without fear of somebody going back to your employer and saying, well, this guy's a bigot and I have the screenshots to prove it from this Discord server. So, yeah, if you dox somebody, tell them what their workplace is or anything else, or try to put them in danger, I'm throwing your ass out of there. That's the end of it. And the last point that I put to this is, and those who think this is too loose are welcome to try another server. It's just like the lyrics, and these people are becoming the new church ladies, because it's just like the rap lyrics in the 90s. If you don't like the lyrics, don't buy the album. But I want to buy the album. Or the heavy metal lyrics, that'd be another one for me, because I do more heavy metal than rap. But yeah, if you don't like the lyrics on the Korn album, don't buy the fucking thing. I'll buy it. But yeah, that's the way it is. And of course, somebody with a rainbow flag in her profile had to come out and say, in that case, people will flock to another server because people who are uncomfortable with bigoted or lewd behavior will become inactive or leave, leaving only a majority of nasty people who feel like they can do whatever they want, have fun fostering a community of creeps. And of course I replied, bye, have a beautiful time. Nobody's holding a gun to your head to say, come into my Discord server. Nobody's telling you have to be in there. If you don't want to be in it, then don't be in it. But if you're going to come in and start criticizing, and I put this out in the mod strategy, it is technically against the rules for any of my mods to kick somebody out for coming in and complaining about the fact that I have too few rules. And with people like this going around there, I do feel like they're going to start drifting around to other servers and trying to get them shut down. It is against the rules in my server for you to kick a person out for that. But I told all my mods yesterday that if they did kick somebody out over that, I can't definitively say I would see it. So that's what I have on that. I mean, just leave your bullshit in your own servers. Don't force it onto the rest of us. That's all I'm asking. You can run your Discord server however the fuck you want. But leave your bullshit on your own. I like Discord. I think it's a good platform. It's good for video hosting. Until they went ahead and ramped up their system requirements for their video chat, which was bullshit. But for the most part, it's a good place. And I've met a lot of great people using various Discord servers associated with freedom of speech and libertarianism. I've met a lot of great people with that. But yeah, absolutely. Leave your bullshit in your own server. All right, but that is going to be it for the day. So we're going to head on out of here. I got to get some food in my belly and head out to work because I overslept and I'm running behind. But thanks everybody who came by and chatted with us. We will have more news tomorrow, except market news because the markets are going to be closed tomorrow. Well, we'll still see what the futures look like, but we will have more news tomorrow because I'm sure that the world is continue to end no matter what it is that we do. So we will see you here tomorrow. Until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.